All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new COW podcast episode, and COW stands for Championing Our Wellness. I am Nicola, and today it is once again just me hosting another episode and with another international student. Please welcome my lovely guest, Maria-Luiza, or short Malu Takahashi. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for the warm introduction and for inviting me on this podcast. I'm very excited to be here.
Of course, I'm very excited to chat with you too, and because I had some international student athletes on this podcast before, and I'm excited to hear from the perspective of a regular international student too. And yeah, so I already know quite a bit about you from like our classes together and everything, but our listeners and viewers probably don't. So why don't you go ahead and give us a quick introduction on like who you are, what you do here in Shippensburg, and where you're from. And I know that's going to be quite the story too.
Yeah, so a little bit about me, my background. First, with Shippensburg, I am a senior. Just like you, I am a dual major in political science and international studies, and I have a minor in anthropology. But I also decided to continue my education at the graduate level here, so I started my master's in public administration, and hopefully I'll finish that by 2027, which is the track that I'm on, or earlier, you know.
Yeah.
But a little bit about me, how I ended up at Shippensburg University, starting with my family background. So I was born in Sweden, yes, in Europe, to a already global family. So my dad, he is Japanese Brazilian, and my mom is Brazilian. And my dad's work led him to move around to all different places, and Sweden was just one of the ones that we lived. So I was born and raised in Gothenburg, Sweden. But I also have lived some time in France, and more in the southern part, in Lyon. And in Brazil, where I call home, it's in a state that's more to the south, and it borders Argentina, it borders Paraguay, and it's called Paraná. Okay. And I come from the capital from there.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I've been in tidbits of places around, have had a very enjoyable and eye-opening upbringing, very global and international centered family. Yeah. And when I had the opportunity to come to the United States with my family, my dad for work and me for studies, I absolutely was thrilled at that chance, not only because I would be able to experience different cultures and live in another country, but because I know how prestigious American universities are, especially if you live like in Europe or in South America or Asia. And so having an opportunity like that is not something that I was going to let go by.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that you've been like all over the world basically already and like can call the world your home. Because, yeah, I just love that as an international student myself. I mean, yeah, I'm from Europe as well. And then I have seen the world, but I think not quite as much as you have. But I love it.
There's still a lot of time, like...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm so excited to go travel. Like, as I grow older, I want to see everything. So, yeah. And you say you came here with, like, your dad and the work, for his work. And how was your experience transitioning to the United States? I mean, did you move here from Sweden?
No. So my trajectory was, I was born in Sweden. I lived there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I moved to Brazil. My parents were moving back, and my brother were moving back, but it was the first time I was there. Okay. I stayed there for, I think, 1 or 2 years, and then I went back to Sweden, stayed there for about 6 years, lived about 2 years in France, 3 years in Brazil, and now here. Okay. And something that I just remembered is that I was actually alphabetized in 2 or 3 different languages at the same time.
Okay.
So I was alphabetized in Portuguese at home by my mom. She was my Portuguese teacher.
Okay.
And in school, because I went to an international school, everything was English.
Yeah.
So I've gone to school in English for most of my life. But I also had parallel education in other languages too at the same time.
That's so cool. And like when you're so young, you pick up the language so quick too.
Children are sponges. Like
Yeah,
they pick up everything so quick.
It. I'm so glad I started learning English at a young age because like obviously it pays off now. But like I think like teaching kids languages when they're young is so important.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so back to the U.S. So, like, when you moved from Brazil to here, like, how was the transition for you? Like, what was a challenge or, like, what was really easy for you? And, like, how has moving around so much throughout your life maybe helped you with moving here and adapting? Or how has it, like, impacted the process?
Yeah, so the biggest, I wouldn't say difficulty. I would say it was more of a new adventure was from the transition that I had throughout my all of my elementary and secondary education. More or less the systems were the same, like schooling and everything, and you weren't preparing for big milestones like graduating high school, preparing for college. And in Brazil, our high school is 3 years. But my school condensed it into 2 years, and the third year was revision and preparation to do entry exams for universities. So in the system in Brazil, it's similar to some countries, I think across Central Asia, even Southeast Asia, but don't quote me on all of those things, is that you have entry exams. So you can actually get into the university. It is more or less like an SAT, but in Brazil we have 3 or 4 stages. And you have to take all of those exams, and they're specific to the course that you want. So it's not acceptance to the institution.
But acceptance to the course.
Exactly.
So like if you were to put that at Shippensburg University, like you would have had to take a specific political science test to get in, and I would have had to take a specific Journal test to get into the program.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is. It's different. It's a very different system. And there too, the 2 places that I was preparing to go were law school and medical school. And you don't have to do a bachelor's before doing that. You go directly into law school and medical school, and the programs are between 5 to 7 years. So that I was geared up, preparing to go to university in Brazil, and then we moved here, and then I found out that because of like some different credit transferability or equivalency, I had to repeat 2 years of high school. So I was a little bit frustrated with that, but then I was like, okay, if I have a high school diploma from the U.S., that's going to make it easier for me to get into an American college.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I was like, okay, I'll just have to deal with that. I'll just work on that, and I'll just get into contact with how the American school system is here, because I also was curious about that.
Yeah, me too. I from like what I hear from my friends, it sounds different.
It is. It is very. It's very different. So it was a new experience. But I would say that aspect I would say was the biggest kind of shock for me. But of course, I had support from my family, and I had experience from like moving and being kind of adaptable to different things and new changes. So that is something that definitely went to my benefit.
Yeah, and I think it definitely helped you with like your transcripts for them to be American high school diploma, because I know because I finished the Abitur, as we call it in Germany, which is like kind of like a high school diploma, but probably a bit like higher level of an education at high school, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. But like, so I finished with like a 1.6 on a scale from like 1 through 6, and 6 is the worst. So like everything better than 2.0 was like really good. But then, so I finished my Abitur with 1.6, and it got like transcribed into American, and then it turned into a 3.55 GPA, and I was like, I'm not sure this really adds up. And especially now, as like I go through a couple like gen eds and like even some higher level courses, and I'm like, well, I kind of talked about this before in like 9th or 10th grade. Like, this is nothing new to me. Like, I think it's just hard to compare systems sometimes. So I think it was definitely an advantage for you to have the American transcripts, even though it was like the 2 extra years.
Yeah, absolutely, because I saw that, I know family friends that, or just general experiences from other students that if they have an education from another country and they try to enter or the workforce or try to go to college here, there's so many problems with equivalencies and like the people, they are very well skilled in their areas, but there's some sort of disconnect or not a good equivalency system that exists in like these translations of diplomas and courses. So it really does impact people, and it can unmotivate people to actually continue in education, or so that's a big thing.
Yeah, no, like, and now I'm just like kind of hoping that my degree, like once I'm done here with my bachelor's, that it will like transfer to Europe, because like I know I'll be going back home after the summer, like after I'm done here, and like I'll be in Germany. And so I mean, I'm like, I think like employers will be like, okay, she did like a bachelor, but I'm thinking about like doing a master when I get back home at some point maybe. And then I'm just really like hoping that like they will accept the degree like how it is, because like Europe has like a like I think it's all of Europe that has the same like credit system and all, but it's different to the US, and they're really specific with their requirements sometimes, with like have this amount of credits. And like, because I know like in Europe, I think you finish your bachelor with like 180 credits or something, whereas we finish with 120, but they also finish in 3 years, so they take more credits throughout the throughout a year and stuff, or like a course earns more than 3 credits. I don't even know how it works. But it's like, and they're like, you have to finish a degree of like this many credits. And I'm like, well, I finished my degree, but I only have 120. Like, how is this going to work? So I'm really curious to see how that ends up working out.
Absolutely. No, but I think you'll absolutely do fine, because I think just having a bachelor's degree or some sort of higher ed degree or certificate from like a U.S. institution, it's still worth a lot. There's still quite a lot of prestige attached to it. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, and I think like, especially like for like employers, if I'm not necessarily looking for a master's and stuff, I think it's just gonna be like a benefit that I did the whole degree in English instead of in my native language.
Yeah, exactly.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then moving on to the next question, you said you consider Brazil your home, but I mean, I guess all of these places that you lived are somewhat your home. And as an international student, obviously you're not in your home country, even though maybe the U.S. is your new home now. But like, what do you miss most about home? Or like, and like, in this case, like Brazil, or like, what do you miss most about the various places that you lived in?
I think for Sweden, there's definitely this nostalgic aspect, because I spent most of my childhood there. So I have a lot of fond memories of being there.
I can imagine,
and just Gothenburg is just such a beautiful place.
It really is.
It's honestly, it's so beautiful. And our house was right next to like a lake. Yeah. And you could just look into the horizon and just see water, and then just like birds flying, and
that sounds like a dream.
It was wonderful. I used to go there almost every day after school to just like relax or do homework or something related. It was such a nice place, so I hold such fond memories about that. I would absolutely love to go visit my hometown. Now when I'm an adult. France, I spent very little time in France. I think 2 years was not nearly enough to get to know a place that well. But just the food was amazing. Architecture, and there was just France is absolutely a beautiful country. Has a very rich culture. All the places have very rich culture. And Brazil, I love the food. I love the culture, the people. I think you can attest to this, but European culture in terms of like people and socialization, it's very different from Americans. And it's also very different from South America.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
So like I just love the energy and the friendliness and the receptibility that Brazilian people have. It's such a nice and welcoming, and it provides such warmth to you. Like you don't have to be Brazilian. If you're just interested about the country, or if you visit there, the people will absolutely love you. And
I love that.
So I definitely do miss that aspect. But I have learned throughout these years that home is not a place. And home is where you are and where you can make yourself comfortable and you can make yourself well. And for me, if I have my family with me and I have a good support system and I feel like I'm making the place better than it was than when I got there, just by small contributions, whether it's to the community, to single people like that I see out on the street, or just anything at all, then it brings like some sort of joy for me. So
I love that. Like I love that thought process, because like I also like, I don't know, because like so like such a big part of my heart is like here now, but like then like the other part of my heart is still at home, like my friends and family from like when I grew up and stuff. So like it's definitely different for you because you have your family with you, so that makes it really easier to make it like a home here. And I feel like probably like I've been saying so often, like if I had my family with me here, like this would be perfect, because like I don't necessarily like miss like home that much, like, or like my hometown or whatever. Like I can get over that, but like that my family isn't here with me, that's so hard. Like, and I call them so often because I'm like, hey, this happened, or hey, that happened, and like I got this assignment back, like that's my grade, and oh, I missed a point here, like I'm so upset about this. And so
no, I absolutely while I won't be able to understand like what you and most international students that are here without their families go through, I definitely I get it. There's like a something missing, like in your heart. And so from that aspect and various others, I feel myself very fortunate, and then that's why I like to help other people too. If I see that like they're either missing their family or they're going through a tough time, and I'm like, if everybody does their part, everybody's gonna be fine. The community's gonna be better. So And so speaking of that, like, are you ever homesick? And if you are, then what do you do to help it? I actually am homesick a little bit right now, just because I haven't been to Brazil in I think 2 years. I try to go back every year just to visit family, or because again, like I grew up most of my life away from my family, and then those like 3 years that I was there when I was in my teens, I got really close to them, and I got very attached to them, and I'm like, I have had a lifetime without them. I want to get to know them, and now that this time that I have with them, so I definitely do miss my family. I really want to also one big part is I haven't had that much time to travel within Brazil because it's such a huge country.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to explore. I haven't really stepped out much outside of like the south or central part of Brazil.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely love to go because I just want to get to know more about my own culture because I feel sometimes like I'm an outsider when I'm there because I don't know enough about the country.
Yeah.
But then when I'm away, I'm like, I wish I was back home.
Yeah. So what do you do to like feel less homesick? Is there anything you have?
That's a good question, actually. I haven't really thought about it because if I'm feeling like that, I try to sort of do something else and not be homesick or not feel homesick.
Distract yourself.
But I would probably say that my family has the biggest support in that. Or we do actually have a pretty big Brazilian community here in
really nice.
Shippensburg, Chambersburg area. So they're kind of like our family away from Brazil.
I love that.
So just having gatherings or even if it's us going out for a picnic or just doing arts and crafts or something like that, just having that energy and everyone together, I'm like, okay, we're good.
Like having like a little Brazil away from Brazil.
Oh,
like I relate because like I sometimes get homesick, but like I get less homesick for the place. Like I said earlier, it's more like I get homesick for like the people that are there. And so whenever I am and it's like throughout the day and I know there's a chance that like my parents or so will pick up the phone, then I'll just call them to like feel more connected. And if it's at night, I also just like try to distract myself. But there's a German family here off campus. She was the German professor here for a while, and Mary Burnett connected me to her, like gave my contact information to the family, and then they reached out and were like, hey, we're a German family, like living off campus, we're like you're like in community contact kind of deal. If you ever feel like you want to speak German, or if you ever want to hang out, or if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to us and you're always welcome. And I like responded, and they took me in like a family almost. And it's like I go over for like dinner every once in a while, and like whenever I feel like, okay, like this is like too much American stuff going on around me, I need some like German feeling. I'm always like, hey guys, when are you free this week? And like I go visit them a bunch, and then they like sometimes come out and like to my meets and watch me compete, support me for like home meets and stuff. Or like when they go do like last year they went to Hershey Park and were like, hey, you want to come with us? And so like it's really cool to have like some like German family away from home. So
no, that's great. Mary's wonderful. Honestly, like she is the core. She's the rock for international students here. Not only international students, but all students. But I'm so glad that you have that, honestly, because I honestly don't know how well I would be coping. Not coping, but coping's the wrong word. How well of a support system I would have of like a solid foundation if I didn't have like small doses of like something that makes you feel warm inside with like familiarity to your culture, even if it's food, language, or anything like that.
And you can be as close to the people here as you want to be, like, and it just doesn't change the thing of like having something around you that you grew up with. Because, like, I have so many friends here, and, like, I love all of them dearly, but, like, there's just something about it when you can really speak German to somebody, and you don't have to, like, think about it, like, 3 times before you say something, or just, like, cooking a meal that's, like, your mom always makes for you. Like, there's some, like, little things about that make you feel warm inside and, like, give you a sense of home that, like, nobody here can really replace in that way.
Yeah, exactly, and like you briefly talked about how there's certain cultural divide that we have as international students.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are living in another language here.
Yeah.
No matter how fluent we are and how accustomed we are to taking classes, everyday life, or accustomed to the system, there's just something more natural and less like mind tiring
Yes.
than having to completely let go
Mm-hmm.
and have just decompress your thoughts and just be
Yes.
able to not think about what you have
Yes.
to say, not in
Mhm.
like a unmoderated speech kind of way,
Mhm.
but in a way where everything comes naturally. It just
Yes.
flows because
Yes.
it's in the language that you were coordinated and that you
Yeah.
were first introduced to as a child.
Yes, no,
So.
I agree with that. Like, because coming here, going to classes, like, because my school was German. So, like, the only English I spoke in school was, like, English class. And then coming here and taking all classes just in English, and I was sitting there, like, the first couple of weeks I tried to take notes in German because I was like, I don't know half of these English words. But then I figured out that, like, if I just take notes in English and, like, try to understand them later if I had to, was, like, the quicker way to do it and the better way to do it. And it's just really crazy to see how, like, I went from, oh, my God, I barely understand what you're talking about, to, oh, like, it's, like, I write it all down as, like, I listen and, like, I fully understand. Like, it's almost like it's my first language. It's not, but, like, it's as close as it can be probably.
Yeah.
But it's still, like, whenever you, like, sometimes, like, especially, like, if it's, like, a harder conversation or something, you always think about things you want to say, like, twice because you're like, I don't want this to come off rude. I don't want this to come off wrong. Like, what if I word this incorrectly? Like, what if my wording makes it sound, like, mean or something? And like,
Yeah.
in your home, like, in your native language, you just know, like, how something comes off, like how do I say something to mean it nice, and like all that stuff. And like here it's just sometimes you're like tiptoeing around certain things because like you have to think about it constantly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always joke with my family or like people on campus here. Like, you guys have no idea how funny I am in Portuguese.
Yes.
Like I can articulate things in English pretty well, but nothing's as funny as, because like there's some things that it just sounds so much better in your mother tongue.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe my parents are biased. I don't know. Or everyone that speaks Portuguese and has been in my life is biased. But they've told me, like, you're much funnier in Portuguese. You have a much better sense of humor than when you're doing English.
But I can relate because I think I'm the same way. And, like, it's, like, sometimes, like, it's just, like, some situations you're sitting there and, like, okay, there's, like, a really funny, like, saying or phrase in German now for this, like, moment. But then you try to translate it and it, like, everybody sit there, like, what do you mean? And I'm like, this is supposed to be funny, guys.
Yeah.
Like, just laugh, get over it. Like, we never talk about it again, but, like, don't ask what it means because then I have to explain it and then it's absolutely not funny anymore. But, like, I promise you it was supposed to be funny.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get that.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, so coming from homesickness and missing home and all these challenges to our mental well-being or our wellness, because we're championing our wellness here.
Yes.
So how do you take care of yourself away from home? Like, what do you do to make you feel home? I mean, we already kind of touched on this, but I think it's always good to repeat the good and warm things.
Yes. One thing I love doing, and I've always loved doing since I was small, I think I started, like, I was one of those kids that was like, Mom, I want to play with the knives, with the pans, with the hot oil and everything, because I just was so interested by cooking and baking and, like, food in general. Because I think a big part of Brazilian culture is sharing moments through food.
I think I heard that before.
And it's just, everything is centered around food, good conversations and everything. And so I was like, I think if I learn how to bake and cook different foods, that's a good hobby for me.
Oh, for sure.
But it's also a good way to know the places that I'm living and my culture when I'm not in Brazil.
Yes.
I like baking, cooking. I do have a goal of making perfecting the typical dessert of every country.
Stuff down, and what's the dessert?
Okay. Sweden. This might not be the national dessert of Sweden, but I know there is a cake called princess cake in Sweden.
Think I've heard about it.
It's like very nice, round. It has green marzipan on top.
Okay.
I'll show you a picture of it later. I used to have that cake every year for my birthday.
Aww.
And when we moved away from Sweden, there were no bakeries that could make the cake. So I was like,
you made it yourself.
Determined. I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to make this so I don't have to rely on anyone to make my desserts.
I love that.
And now I make it every year for my birthday. And I always share it with, like, if there's family coming over or friends. And I make those. And I can also say that most of the Brazilian desserts, the typicals that we have, like the brigadeiro, which is like a chocolate truffle, and like some staple cakes that we have, I've got all of them down.
Nice.
Some American desserts too that I've also like dabbled in American desserts too. French desserts are more difficult.
Yeah, I believe that.
The macarons, the French almond cookies.
Yes.
It took me, I think, about 3 months during the pandemic to get them right, because it's such a unique and like one of the hardest things you can do with pastries.
Yeah, I imagine. And do you do like different flavors, or do you just do one flavor?
I do different flavors.
Okay, so I feel like that's also like, do you have to do different things for different flavors, or is it just that sounds hard. That already sounds hard.
Yeah. And then there is this cake from Japan. I'm not sure if it's a traditional dessert or not, but it's like a soft sponge and vanilla with strawberry cake. It's very good.
Yeah.
So I've gotten that down too. And nice. Which other countries? I can't think of all of them at the top of my head right now, but I've been so that's one way that I like to
Yeah. No, I mean, I learned, or like I didn't learn, but like my mom sent me the recipe to her, or like my grandma's cheesecake. I think it was my freshman year, and like it was like the German professor made like a German evening or like theme day for the German minors, and me and different German exchange students were there like helping him with that. And so I made like the cheesecake from my mom is like a traditional German cheesecake, because it's kind of different than the cheesecake here, because cheesecake here is more like heavy and dense and gummy. And like the cheesecake from my mom is more like light and like way less dense. So it's just like different. And so I was like, it would be pretty cool for them to see like the difference and taste the difference. And it was just hard because some of the like ingredients weren't available here. Because like some things they don't have, and then I had to scramble and find a way to like replace them. But I managed to do that. And then again, I think I made it one more time last year for like our Thursday Thanksgiving tradition, so everybody there got to try it too, and they were all like, oh, this is good, like, or this is interesting, like, this is different. And yeah, no, I love also like just like cooking like my favorite meal from home or something when I'm like when I like miss home, or like to make myself feel better. So like I can definitely relate to the food aspect.
There's just something about food and like the familiar flavors. I think because it engages like different parts of like your senses and your palate, and it brings up like different psychological aspects, and also the physical aspect that you're being fed, that you're feeding your body. But I think it's a complete package. That's why I think cooking or baking, I just resort to it very frequently.
And it's also a good way to take your mind off of things, because you're just like busying yourself with things. Yeah, no, we agree. Okay, and then we're actually already coming towards the end of our session here today. but we usually have the tradition to ask ChatGPT a question or two and then like talk about it. So I asked ChatGPT, what are the biggest challenges for international students? No, wait, wrong question. I asked ChatGPT, what is the hardest thing about moving to different countries for people, because you move to so many different countries. So I was like, it's probably a good question for you. Mm-hmm. And ChatGPT gave me like, wait, how many? 9 different things, 9 different talking points. So at first, ChatGPT said, moving to a different country can be an exciting but challenging experience. Here are some of the most difficult aspects people often face. And then the first thing is cultural adjustment, like culture shock, homesickness, and language barriers, which we can agree.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So actually, how was it for you? Because like, I mean, I'm guessing in Sweden, you usually like, you spoke Portuguese with your mom. You spoke English in school. Did you also learn Swedish?
I did. I learned Swedish in school. And one thing in Sweden, at least when I lived there, it was almost everyone spoke English.
Oh, yes.
So there was not really a need to learn Swedish. Mm-hmm. But my first word ever was in Swedish.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it was. Yes. It was funny.
Mm-hmm. Like when we visited Sweden, because we did like a road trip through Sweden and Norway the one year, and my dad told us that like a lot of people in Scandinavian countries speak English really well and understand it really well, because apparently also often the movies aren't like translated into those languages because there aren't enough people that speak them. So a lot of times the movies will still be in English in the movie theater and just like have subtitles or something, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. And then like we used to go out in public initially, and when neither my mom nor me, we had learned Swedish, people were like, oh, no, we don't speak English. But then they said it in perfect English. I think people were a little bit hesitant to use English too much, because if everyone knows that they speak English there fluently, then the Swedish language, which is already spoken by like 11 million people, is going to get even more and more isolated. Yes. It's a speculation I have. I might be wrong, but I think that was the case. But I did learn in elementary school because I went from ESL. I did 2 years of ESL, English as a second language. Yeah. And then I was like, I want to go to Swedish now. My English is okay.
I love that. Ambitious.
So then they put me in Swedish class, and then I stayed there for, I think 2 or 3 years. And I got to the advanced level in middle school, and then we moved to France.
Okay, and then that was actually my next question. Like, did you learn French before you moved to France, or did you learn French while in France, or did you not learn French at all? Like, how was that?
So I had started learning, like, the basics in my school in Sweden the year before we moved. Okay. Because they offered, when you got to middle school, they offered Spanish or French or you could take both as foreign languages. Yeah. Swedish was a requirement, and English was a requirement for students that were still in the process of learning. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to try 1 semester of Spanish, 1 semester of French. It just so coincided that the semester before we moved to France, I was put in the French class. Okay. And then by the time I got to France, I could already say, "Bonjour, je m'appelle Maria-Luiza." Yeah, the basics. Yeah. And then there I learned and got to like intermediate advanced level of French.
Impressive. So how many languages overall do you speak today, or have you spoken throughout your life?
Throughout my life, I would say 5. Okay. Of course, practice is something that we have to maintain to like keep the language going. I don't know about you, but sometimes if I'm speaking English too much, I forget some things in Portuguese. I don't know if it's the same with you in German.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, yeah.
So like I get stuck initially, but if I pick it up in like a day or two, I'll be back to just completely. I'll be able to like live. I can live in any of those countries and speak those languages.
Okay, that's
fine.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I speak German obviously because I grew up with that, and then in 5th grade I started learning English. And then in 6th grade I had the choice between Latin and French, and I chose Latin, even though, so I know that pretty well too, or like I knew that pretty well. You can't speak it obviously, but like I think it's like a good foundation with like grammar and stuff.
Yeah.
Because then in 8th grade I had the choice between Spanish and a science, and I chose the science, but I kind of always wanted to learn Spanish still. So now like I think like last year or so when I flew to Puerto Rico with my brother over Christmas, and there we were like, oh, a lot of people speak Spanish here. Maybe we should have learned before. And then we like last second like downloaded Duolingo and started learning, and ever since I've been doing it every day.
Oh, that's
So
great.
like I generally don't think I'm able to hold a conversation in Spanish or anything, but like I'm picking up words, and like I know like a lot of grammar is like really familiar to me because of Latin, so like that made it a lot easier.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I didn't know you understood Latin, and that's great.
I'm trying. So the next point ChatGPT mentioned as difficult was legal and administrative challenges, like visa and permits and taxes. And now that it's tax season, I can fully relate again.
Yeah.
I always push tax season to the back of my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's challenging. I always think German taxes are hard, but then I do American taxes and I'm really, really lost. And I'm like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Then another thing ChatGPT mentioned was financial adjustments with currency differences and the cost of living, which I can imagine that was different with definitely for sure like Sweden and US, I think, because Sweden is a pretty different system.
It is. So I still like the main currencies that I still convert. It's probably from US dollars to Brazilian reais.
Okay.
Sometimes I find myself converting from dollars to Swedish currency. I don't know why. I've lived there such a long time ago, but I think it was something I was just so used to doing.
Oh, yes.
Because we grew up with Swedish currency, and once a year we went to Brazil, and we were always like doing math, like, okay, how much is this in Brazilian currency? How much would this be in Swedish currency? And then just to translate. I don't know if you still do that with like US dollars and euros.
Yes, I do sometimes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, like I'm saving money here right now. Oh, I'm paying more than I could at home. Like it's always like this, like, wait, do I do this currency or do I this currency? Like what is cheaper for me? I'm always like, 2 cents cheaper is cheaper.
Yeah.
As cheap as that might sound, but
yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that if we're already accustomed to like international travel or we're living abroad, I think that's a mechanism that most people might have in their brain in the back, like, okay, how much would this be in that currency? How much would this be in that currency? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, then another point would be healthcare and insurance, or the next point is social connections with like building a new social network. And I feel like that's hard. I'm not sure, like for me, when I came here, it really helped me that I was part of the track team, because like they like took me in like a second family, and like that was really like the first people that I knew here. And then like, I mean, over the years, obviously I also met people outside of the track team, like you. But yeah, it was like helpful to have that. Like, how was that for you coming here and like going to high school again, or like in other countries?
I think that's a big aspect. Like I'm a generally shy person. I think you noticed this when we first met. Now that you know me, you're like, oh, please stop talking. But
Never.
But when I've always been very shy. I've always been very opinionated or have very strong perceptions or like, I have very strong perceptions and boundaries. And sometimes that doesn't translate culturally.
Yes.
Because it can be something that's dependent on your culture, but also depends on like your family and everything. So in Brazil, our culture is more centered around family. Yeah. And like family is like a big focal point. So there's always that responsibility to family. And Japanese culture is also very much like that. So I got both of that from both sides. But here I noticed that it's different. It's like when you get to your teen years, you are sort of branching out and your family's a little bit secondary.
Yes.
It's a general trend that I've noticed. And it's just something that it's not feasible for me. And it's not feasible for other people to have family as their focal point because it's culturally different. And that does impact how you build relationships with people and what kind of relationships you build with people.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, Okay, and then other points ChatGPT said was housing and living arrangements, like finding a place to live and understanding local laws, which I think, for sure, that's an interesting one. Another one would be food and daily life, and then work and career, which you work for the Global Education Center, just like me. So we both found a new job.
Yay!
And then feeling of uncertainty, like dealing with the unknown. And I think like you definitely feel that at first. And then I think you get over that pretty quickly, but sometimes it comes back. And it really hits you in the moments you least expect it. At least that's for me. I don't know how you have it.
I think it's like success or progress is not like linear. We have days where we are feeling much better and days when we might need a little bit more break from the world or support from people. So I think it really does depend on, but I think if you have a good support system, and I think having one of the big things that I had here that I found out was having like academic offices and departments of support. And I think you know who I'm talking about, Mary. She has been a wonderful resource. She's been she's like there for all of her students, international students. She goes above and beyond, and she's so receptive. She's responsive, and she's probably the reason why many of the international students have picked this university as their home for like the 4 years that they're here. So I think having that as a support system, it does help a lot.
For sure. Shout out Mary.
Yes, Mary, we love you, Mary.
Yeah, no, she's so helpful with all she does for us. And like whenever you have anything like question about like paperwork or anything, she's always there for you. And like even like, and if you have like questions for like regarding your major or something, like all the professors, like I think you like know most of the professors at the department like pretty well by the end of your time here, because it's like such a like small university in a way, and it's just so much easier to build like connections with them. And like whenever you have like any questions, you can always go up to them and ask them about it, and like they give you their opinion, which I value a lot, because like they've seen a lot and they know what they talk about. And so it's always good to get like a perspective from them too, because like, well, it doesn't necessarily like help me a lot sometimes because they don't have experience in Germany, but like they have experience with the job market in general, whereas like my parents who have experience in Germany, they don't really know like the media experience. So like I think it's like a good back and forth and like a good mix of like support I get here and from home.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, and that was actually all that ChatGPT said. And then as summary, ChatGPT said, while all of these challenges can be tough, they can also be part of the rewarding experience of personal growth. Many people find that over time they develop resilience, learn new skills, and create deeper connections in their new country. And I think that's a beautiful summary about being an international student.
Absolutely. ChatGPT, whoever's doing your programming now is doing a great job, because that was very accurate.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like I can relate to that. Like, it was tough at times, but now that I'm like my time here is coming to its end, like I'm so grateful that I've been here, and like I went through so many things that I probably never thought I would get through, and I'm still here. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I love that I had the opportunity to like live in a different culture and like learn in different cultures so well in these 4 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you go back home, it's also you're gonna relearn about your home country through different eyes.
Yes.
And I think that's gonna be another new adventure in itself. That's gonna be very, very warm and very positive.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for what's coming in the future.
Yeah.
And I hope you are too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love to chat with you, and I love to learn new about like different countries, different cultures that I've never been to or didn't know much about. And I definitely love what you were able to share with me today.
Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for extending the invitation, for your time, and for this project, which I think it's something very amazing, and it's great to give a platform for students and to share about their experiences, because again, there are some students that can't go abroad, but listening to students that are abroad and are here, they can get a little piece of the world while still on campus.
Yes, no, and I think it's great I get to share these amazing stories with international students, because it's so inspiring to me. And I love that I have the opportunity. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening, for watching. And we'll see you next time for the next cow episode. Bye.